Today, as Adebisi laid her hands on a man in a wheelchair, the crowd erupted in cheers, but Sade's heart skipped a beat. She had seen that very man just days ago walking around the busy streets of Oshodi, perfectly fine. How could this be real? She thought. Something's wrong here. Sade sat quietly, the noise of the congregation's cheers filling her ears. But her mind was racing. How could this man, who was walking around the market, suddenly be crippled and then healed right in front of us? She asked herself. The others around her were so quick to praise prophetess Adebisi, clapping and praising God for the miracle, but Sade wasn't convinced. She had been watching closely, seeing the same patterns unfold at each service, and it was becoming clearer to her. This wasn't real. As the service continued, Sade's suspicions grew stronger. The way Adebisi commanded attention, the way the followers hung on her every word. It was as if no one ever questioned her. But why did everything feel so scripted, so rehearsed? Adebisi wasn't just a preacher, she was a force, controlling everything around her. Why does no one question her? Sade thought. The thought disturbed her, but she knew she had to find out the truth. Years ago, Adebisi had been just another young woman from a small town in Oyo State, raised in a modest home with strong Christian values. She had a simple life, always helping others, singing in church, and volunteering in the community. She was known for her devotion and sincerity, and many believed she was destined for greatness. Her family saw her as the light of their church, the one who would lead others to salvation. But somewhere along the way, her path took a darker turn. It all began when Adebisi attended a powerful spiritual conference in the heart of Lagos. There, she met some of the most influential pastors and preachers in the country, all claiming to have unique gifts of divine power. One particular pastor, Pastor Tunde, approached her privately after the conference. "You're a good woman, Adebisi," he said, his eyes dark with intent. "But to truly make an impact, you must be willing to sacrifice." Adebisi hesitated. Sacrifice? What does he mean? She wondered. Pastor Tunde explained that if she wanted to have true influence, she would need to make a special offering. "The power you seek will not come without a price," he warned. Desperate to rise above her humble beginnings, Adebisi agreed. That night, she participated in a strange ritual in which she sacrificed something precious, her ability to ever have children. In return, Pastor Tunde promised her unimaginable power. After that fateful night, everything began to change for Adebisi. Her ministry grew exponentially. People from every part of Lagos and beyond came to see the woman who could see it all. Her church, Divine Grace Ministry, became the center of attention. But with the rapid growth of her congregation came strange rumors. Some whispered that Adebisi was not just a prophetess, but something far more powerful, something beyond human. At night, after the congregation had left, Adebisi would slip away from her luxurious mansion in Lekki. The city's neon lights would fade behind her as she headed toward the quiet shores of the Lagos Lagoon. Here, in the dark, she would undergo a terrifying transformation. Her body would twist and change as she shed her human form, becoming something else, something dark and serpentine. Beneath the waters of the lagoon, she would join her true masters, the ancient beings that controlled the marine kingdom. There, she was given the power to see into the lives of her followers, to manipulate their every move, to control their fates. But this power came with a price. Adebisi's soul, her humanity, and her very future were all bound to the marine kingdom. With each passing week, more and more people crowded into the grand hall of Divine Grace Ministry. News of Adebisi's miraculous powers spread like wildfire, and soon her church was filled to capacity. From the bustling streets of Surulere to the serene neighborhoods of Ikeja, people came seeking healing, financial blessings, and divine favor. They came from all walks of life, from the rich business tycoons to the poor, hoping to receive a touch of Adebisi's so-called miracles. But as the numbers grew, so did the manipulation. Adebisi's followers were like puppets, dancing to her every command. They believed in her completely, offering up their wealth, their time, and their hopes in exchange for the miracles she promised. To them, Adebisi was the answer to their prayers. Saad, however, watched from the back, her suspicions deepening. Every Sunday, she saw the same pattern: desperate people with broken hearts handing over their money for miracle oils and blessed water. She knew something was wrong. The promises were too good to be true. Yet, no one questioned her. Everyone was so eager to believe. One Sunday, as the service was drawing to a close, Adebisi called the congregation to attention. She announced that she had a special gift for each of her followers, a gift that would bring them closer to their divine purpose. "I have something that will open your eyes," she declared, her voice smooth and hypnotic. "It is called the Mirror of Life. This blessed mirror will show you what your spirit needs to heal." The people gasped in awe, hanging on every word. Said watched as Adebisi's aides passed out the mirrors to the congregation. The small, ornate hand mirrors were wrapped in velvet cloths, each one said to be blessed by Adebisi herself. "Look into it every morning," Adebisi instructed the crowd, "and you will see the parts of your soul that need healing." The followers eagerly accepted their mirrors, convinced that this was the key to their spiritual growth. But Sade knew better. She had seen the way Adebisi's followers changed after using the mirrors. They became more and more dependent on her. Little did they know, the mirrors were linked to the Marine Kingdom, a way for Adebisi to peer into their lives, learn their weaknesses, and control them from afar. As Divine Grace Ministry continued to grow, so did the methods Adebisi used to extract wealth from her followers. She began selling miracle water and holy oil at exorbitant prices, claiming that these items could cure any disease, fix any marriage, and even bring financial prosperity. The bottles were simple, but the prices were anything but. A small bottle of oil would cost the equivalent of a month's salary for many in the congregation. But Adebisi assured them that the money they gave was a seed for their blessings. One Sunday, Saad watched in horror as a struggling mother walked up to the front, holding her last savings in her hands. She handed the money over to Adebisi, who smiled sweetly, as if blessing the woman's sacrifice. "The Lord will multiply this seed," Adebisi promised. The crowd clapped, but Sade felt a pang of sadness. She knew this mother would never see that money again, and her troubles would only deepen. It wasn't a blessing. It was a scam. But no one dared speak out. They were all too afraid of angering the prophetess, the woman who claimed to hold the power of God. Late one night, Sade couldn't shake off the feeling that she needed to know more about Adebisi. She had seen too much, heard too many whispered conversations about the prophetess's strange rituals, and felt a growing need to uncover the truth. So, on one of those humid Lagos nights, Sade made up her mind to follow Adebisi. She quietly left her home in Surulere and made her way to the edge of the city, to the lagoon that lay behind Adebisi's mansion in Lekki. She hid in the bushes, her heart racing as she waited for the prophetess to appear. Hours passed before Saad finally saw Adebisi. The prophetess slipped out of her mansion in the dead of night, her figure barely visible in the darkness. Saad's breath caught in her throat as Adebisi walked towards the water. She watched in stunned silence as the woman stopped at the water's edge, raised her arms to the sky, and began chanting in a language Saad didn't understand. Slowly, Adebisi's body began to change. Her legs fused together, and her skin shimmered, revealing scales as her eyes glowed with an unnatural light. Saad gasped, barely able to believe what she was seeing. The prophetess wasn't human. She was a creature of darkness, an agent of the marine kingdom. Said stumbled back, nearly tripping over a rock as she tried to process what she had just witnessed. The woman she had admired, the one everyone in the church called Mama Sees All, was not who she seemed. Adebisi was no mere prophetess. She was a creature of the depths, bound to the marine kingdom by dark forces. The power she wielded was not from God, but from the ancient beings who ruled the waters of Lagos, beings who had given her the ability to control people's lives, to see their secrets, and to manipulate their fates. As Said watched, Adebisi slipped into the lagoon, vanishing beneath the dark waters like a serpent. Sade's heart raced in her chest. She had uncovered the truth, but it was worse than she could have ever imagined. Adebisi wasn't just a fraud. She was an evil force, feeding on the faith and desperation of her followers. Said knew that if she didn't act soon, more innocent people would fall victim to Adebisi's schemes. But how could she expose someone so powerful? How could she take down the woman who held so many in her thrall? Said couldn't shake the images of Adebisi's transformation from her mind. As she lay awake in her bed that night, she knew that her mission had just begun. She couldn't let the congregation remain under Adebisi's spell. The people needed to know the truth about the woman they were following. But how? Adebisi had a powerful influence, and Sade feared what might happen if she tried to expose her. The prophetess would stop at nothing to protect her secrets, and Sade had no idea what dark forces she was dealing with. The next Sunday, Sade went to church with a heavy heart. As she entered the hall, she could feel Adebisi's eyes on her. The prophetess was sitting at the front, her smile cold and calculating as she scanned the congregation. Said's heart pounded in her chest, but she stood tall. She couldn't back down now. She had to find a way to expose the truth, even if it meant risking everything. The following Sunday, as Said walked into the Grand Hall of Divine Grace Ministry, she felt a cold shiver run down her spine. Adebisi was standing at the front, her presence dominating the room. She smiled as she caught sight of Said, but there was something about the smile that made Said uneasy. It was too knowing, too sharp. It was as if Adebisi could read her every thought. As the service began, Adebisi called for everyone to bring forward their offerings, urging the congregation to give sacrificially if they wanted to receive divine healing. "The more you give, the greater your blessings," Adebisi proclaimed in her soothing voice. Said watched as people came forward, placing money, jewelry, and even their family heirlooms into the collection baskets. Her heart sank as she saw the desperation in their eyes. It was as if they were willing to give away everything they had in exchange for miracles that seemed too good to be true. How many more people would she deceive? Said thought, clenching her fists in frustration. She had to stop this. That evening, Sade couldn't sleep. She replayed the events of the day in her mind, her resolve hardening with each passing minute. I need evidence, proof that Adebisi is a fraud. Her thoughts raced. She knew that exposing Adebisi's deception wouldn't be easy. Adebisi had too much power, too many people behind her. But Said was determined. If she could collect enough evidence, maybe she could free the people from Adebisi's control. The next day, Said returned to the church with a plan. She had learned that Adebisi often performed miracles at the back of the church, away from the prying eyes of the congregation. That's where she would start. She waited until the church was quiet, then quietly slipped into the back room. She found Adebisi sitting with a few of her closest aides, talking in hushed tones. They were preparing for the evening service. As Sade crept closer, she saw them arranging bottles of holy oil and blessed water on a table. But this time, there was something odd. Sade could see that some of the bottles were just ordinary products, with labels hastily removed. So this is how she does it, Sada thought, her heart pounding. She quickly took a few pictures with her phone, documenting the fraud. She had to be careful. One wrong move, and Adebisi would know what she was up to. The next Sunday, Sade felt the weight of her secret as she entered Divine Grace Ministry again. She had the evidence now, but something told her that Adebisi was aware of her growing suspicions. Adebisi's gaze seemed to follow Sade as she walked to her seat. There was an eerie calm about her, like a predator watching its prey. As the service went on, Sadie could feel Adebisi's eyes on her, the prophetess's smile never leaving her face. When the altar call came, Adebisi suddenly stopped mid-sentence and fixed her gaze on Sad. The crowd fell silent. "Said," Adebisi's voice rang out, smooth and chilling. "The Lord has shown me that you are carrying a burden, a secret that is eating away at you." The congregation gasped. Sade's breath caught in her throat, and her hands trembled as Adebisi's piercing eyes locked onto hers. "Come forward, child. Let me lift this burden from you." Sade's heart raced. Adebisi knew. Somehow she knew that Sad was the one who had been quietly watching, collecting evidence. The congregation stared at Sad, waiting for her to move. She could feel the weight of their eyes on her, but she stood frozen in place, her mind racing. What do I do now? With every step Sade took toward the front of the church, her fear grew. The whispers of the congregation grew louder, and she could hear the soft murmurings of awe and suspicion. "Is she the one who doubts Mama sees all?" one person whispered. Another added, "Maybe she's been possessed. That's why she's resisting." Sade's legs felt heavy, but she kept walking, determined not to show fear. When she reached the altar, Adebisi stood before her, her smile like a blade. "I know what you are doing, Sade," Adebisi whispered, leaning in close. "You think you can expose me, but be careful. There are some secrets that are better left untouched. You are digging into dangerous waters, my child. You're not ready to know the truth." Adebisi's breath was cold against her ear, sending a shiver through Sade's body. But she refused to back down. "I'm not afraid of you," Sade said, her voice steady. "You may have deceived these people, but I won't let you continue. I will expose you." Adebisi's smile faded, replaced by a sharp, icy glare. "You don't know what you're dealing with, Sade. You'll regret this." But as she turned away, Sade saw a flicker of fear in her eyes. For the first time, Adebisi was no longer the untouchable prophetess. She was vulnerable, and Sade knew it was time to strike. Sade knew the next step in her mission would be the hardest. She couldn't take down Adebisi alone. She needed allies, people who had been victims of Adebisi's manipulation, people who would believe the truth. So Sade began to talk to members of the congregation, quietly asking if they had experienced anything strange or troubling at Divine Grace Ministry. It wasn't long before she met Bola, a man who had been a loyal follower of Adebisi for years. "I gave everything to that woman," Bola confessed, his voice filled with regret. "My savings, my time, my faith, but I never got what I was promised. I lost my job, my health started failing, and my wife left me. I don't know what happened, but I know I was deceived." Sad listened closely, knowing that Bola's story was just one of many. She began to build a network of people who were willing to stand with her, people who had suffered under Adebisi's control. Together, they would expose the truth, and together, they would bring down the woman who had fooled so many. Sade felt a renewed sense of purpose as she met with Bola and the others. There was strength in numbers. The more she learned about Adebisi's manipulations, the more determined she became to reveal the truth. But Sade knew that to defeat Adebisi, they needed irrefutable proof, something that would shake the foundations of the entire ministry. Bola's story was just the beginning. He introduced Sade to other former followers of Adebisi who had left the church after realizing they were being exploited. One by one, they shared their experiences, how they had been asked for larger and larger donations, how they had been promised miraculous healings that never came to pass, and how Adebisi's followers had been told that their suffering was a test from God. Sade listened to their stories, her heart heavy with the knowledge of the damage Adebisi had caused. But this was only part of the story. She needed to find more, something that would expose Adebisi's dark connection to the Marine Kingdom. There were rumors that some of Adebisi's closest aides were starting to question her methods, and Sade believed that if she could reach out to them, they could provide the final piece of the puzzle. One evening, Sade overheard a conversation between two of Adebisi's most trusted aides, Titi and Lanre, in the church parking lot. They were discussing Adebisi's latest miracle service and how the prophetess had specifically asked them to arrange things to make the miracles seem more real. Sade hid behind one of the parked cars, her heart racing as she heard Titi mention how Adebisi used fake healings to boost her reputation and increase donations. "We set up those staged healings," Titi said, her voice low. "The wheelchair guy? He's a regular actor. Adebisi pays him well to pretend. She wants people to believe in her powers so they'll keep coming back." Lanre nodded. "It's a money-making machine. She knows exactly what she's doing." Sade's mind spun. This was the proof she needed. She quickly jotted down everything they had said in her notebook, making sure to remember every detail. The following Sunday, Sade entered the church with a new sense of determination. She wasn't just there to watch anymore. She was there to confront Adebisi and bring her actions to light. The service was already in full swing when she arrived, with people filling the seats and the air thick with fervent worship. At the front, Adebisi stood in all her glory, her smile radiant, her eyes sharp with authority. Sade approached the front, her heart pounding in her chest. When Adebisi saw her walking toward the altar, her expression changed. There was no warmth, no recognition, only cold calculation. The prophetess knew something was coming. "I have seen you, Sade," Adebisi said, her voice echoing through the hall as she locked eyes with her. "You've been trying to expose me, haven't you?" The congregation fell silent, sensing the tension. Sade stood tall, refusing to show any fear. "You've deceived these people long enough, Adebisi," Sade said, her voice strong and clear. "It's time for the truth to come out." Adebisi's smile never faltered, but there was a flicker of something dangerous in her eyes. "You think you can expose me? You think you can defeat me with your little truth? I have powers that you cannot even begin to comprehend." The room seemed to grow colder, and for a moment, Sade wondered if Adebisi truly had some kind of supernatural hold over the people. But she couldn't back down now. "The people deserve to know the truth," Sade said. "You've manipulated them for too long." The tension between them was palpable, and for a moment, the entire congregation seemed to hold its breath. Adebisi took a slow step forward, her gaze fixed on Sade. "You're playing a dangerous game, my dear," she said, her voice smooth but laced with venom. "You have no idea what you're up against." Sade felt her resolve strengthen. She had come this far, and she wasn't about to let Adebisi intimidate her now. "I know exactly what I'm up against. You're not a prophetess. You're a fraud, and I will make sure everyone knows it." With that, Sade reached into her bag and pulled out the evidence she had gathered. The photos of the staged healings, the testimonies from former followers, and the recordings of Adebisi's aides talking about the fake miracles. She spread them out in front of the altar for the congregation to see. The crowd gasped, their faces filled with shock and disbelief. Adebisi's expression twisted into a mask of fury. "You dare bring this before my people? You have no idea what you've just unleashed." The room erupted into chaos as people began murmuring in disbelief, many of them refusing to believe what they were seeing. Some were still loyal to Adebisi, while others began to question everything they had been told. The atmosphere was electric, charged with fear and uncertainty. "You've deceived these people for too long," Sage shouted over the noise. "You've used their faith for your own gain, and I won't stand by and let it continue." Adebisi's eyes flashed with fury, but there was something else behind them now, a flicker of fear. "You think you can take me down?" she hissed. "You have no idea what I'm capable of." Sade stood her ground, knowing she had to hold firm. The truth was out now, and there was no turning back. But Adebisi wasn't finished yet. As Sade turned to leave, Adebisi's voice boomed through the room. "This is not the end, Sade. You will regret this." Sade knew that this battle was far from over. But she had taken the first step toward freeing the people from Adebisi's grasp. She had exposed the truth, and now there was no turning back.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an update. We'd love to hear your thoughts, so drop a comment below. Tell us what part of the story stood out to you the most. And if you think someone else would love this, share it with them. Your support means everything. See you in the next video.